Alright guys, once again, thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Unique Experience. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy the content and want to follow my builds, you should consider subscribing. If you already are subscribed, thanks for tuning in. So, as I mentioned, today I wanted to kind of go ahead and go over some changes that I've made to the turbo since the last video. I think the last video, the last mod that I installed was the Strosic wing in the back. So I kind of wanted to just go over the car, the changes that I've made, and you know, also some changes that I've made to the garage. So we'll go and jump into it. Alright guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and jump into the changes, and I guess we'll go ahead and start with the floors. So the floors that I have here are from Race Deck. If you look to get this type of flooring, you know, the tile flooring, a lot of the times you'll either run into Race Deck or Swiss Tracks. Prior to these floors, I had done epoxy. It did look pretty good for a little while, and then it just started chipping over time. I did get one kind of right off the shelf at your local, you know, Lowe's, Home Depot. It was a couple $100. And like I said, it looked pretty good, but over time it just started chipping up and just became an eyesore. So I've always kind of wanted to do a floor like this. It's just kind of expensive. So, you know, I kind of had to save up for it. So this way I could get exactly what I want. So not to say that epoxy is bad, but I think if you hire a professional, you know, they can prep it correctly. Kind of like, you know, paint work. It's all in the prep work, right? So as long as you prepare the floors correctly and you can get the paint to adhere to it, I'm sure that it can last, you know, much longer than mine did. You know, it's no fault to the product. You know, I'll blame myself and just say that, you know, I think that, you know, it was probably due to my lack of experience in doing epoxy floors. I did it about 3-4 years ago, and it looks pretty awful. I mean, like, pretty big chunks of it were coming out, so I'm sure you guys have probably noticed that the garage is definitely a lot cleaner than if you've seen it in previous videos. And that's because my wife and I actually recently decluttered, organized a bunch of things, labeled it so we know what's what. And after doing that, the garage looked great except for the floor. So that's what, you know, landed us here. So as I mentioned, the floor is by Race Deck. And you know, what's really cool about the website is you can go online and they have a tool where you can pretty much plug in the dimensions of your garage, and then you can make your own design. And when you're done making the design, it'll tell you how many of each color that you need to buy. I believe, you know, there's so many in a case, and it'll tell you how many cases you need. Roughly the cost is about just under $4 per square foot. So depending on the size of your garage will obviously determine the price of it. And then you also have to account for edging pieces right along here. Now, we did not do the edging along the outer parts just because, you know, we have the storage racks there, so you're not really even going to see it anyway. And basically, you know, with just snapping the tiles, it actually lined up pretty close to where you really don't even need edging. So so far, I will say that the material is definitely pretty durable. I mean, granted, I only installed it this past weekend, so time will tell how durable they are, but I have talked to a couple friends that have this product in their garage, and they love it, and they've had it for 15 plus years. You know, over time, I'm sure it probably just looks worn, but, you know, 15 years is a pretty long time, so if I could get 15 years out of it, I'd be pretty happy. Another cool thing about the Race Deck tile is if you look underneath it, they're actually channeled for ventilation and drainage, so you don't worry about, you know, kind of build up underneath, mold, anything like that. The fitment is pretty tight, but it's not watertight. But the cool thing about it is, say you spill oil or something like that, you can actually pop, you know, each individual tile out that you want to work on in that area and just kind of give it a good cleaning. So love the floors. I think that, you know, it definitely goes with the rest of the garage, makes it a lot more cleaner. and super happy with it. So next, we'll go ahead and jump into the mods on the car. So I guess one of the first things we'll go ahead and start with is the side markers. So when you buy the car from the factory, they have amber lenses with amber 194 wedge bulb. I wanted something that would kind of flow with the rest of the car. There's no other lighting on this car that has an orange lens. So I went with the medium, or actually kind of light smoked side marker. And funny enough, I actually bought maybe 3 different pairs just to find the right level of tint. The first 2 times I went with a Depot brand that actually had a built-in LED, but they were super dark, like black pretty much. So I wanted something a little bit lighter that would actually flow better with the factory taillights, or the upper half of it. And I think the level of tint on these side markers actually matches that pretty well. So I'm super happy with those. And then I also did a 194 LED wedge bulb 6000K, and that actually matches with a lot of the lighting that's in the headlights. So headlight wise, the kind of parking light is 6000K LED. The high beam, as you can tell, is also LED. This is the fog light. I did that in a yellow LED, and then I actually replaced the low beam bulb to a 6000K. From the factory, I believe it looks like it's somewhere between maybe a 4300 to maybe 5000 or something. But I wanted the 6K to kind of flow with the rest of the LEDs. Moving on over, another one of the changes I made was I changed the brake pads. So the brake pads on the car, the previous owner had tracked it. And for those who aren't familiar with track pads, it's a pretty hard compound or material. And it does squeak when you come to a stop. And just because they're designed, for them to really perform well, you have to heat up the brakes pretty hot, a lot hotter than you normally would driving on the streets. So they stopped really well, just kind of really noisy. So I replaced the track pads that were on there with a set of Brembos, and they actually worked very well. They're very quiet. They don't output a lot of brake dust, and yeah, they're just great brake pads. So super happy with those. Another thing that I changed is my tires. So when I first bought the car, it came with, the BBS E88s, and it actually had Hoosiers on it. As I mentioned, the previous owner tracked the car, and those were the tires he had, and it gave it a really nice beefy look. So I ordered those exact same tire sizes, but I was not aware that, different brands run more narrow than others. So I went with a Continental Extreme Contact Sport, and it ended up running a lot more narrow than I anticipated. The front was fine, and I believe I had a 245 35 18 in the front and a 295 30 18 in the rear. Front was fine, but the rear actually had some stretching to it, so wasn't a fan of that. And I went ahead and replaced it with a 235 40 18 in the front and a 315 30 18 in the rear. The brand that I went with is the Falcon Azenis RT615K Plus. The reason that I went with that brand is because I wanted to kind of keep the brand the same all the way around. And also they had pretty good reviews, and they were priced pretty well compared to, say, a R888R, which, that compound isn't ideal for, the rain or any inclement weather. Not that I would normally drive this in that, but, there is a possibility that you could be out and, it could start raining or something, and you just don't want to have to worry about that. So far, the tires have been great, and they have great grip. And actually, I noticed that, it definitely just grabs now if you were to kind of take off, or if you're on the highway and you you know, give it go at wide open throttle, it'll just grip and go. Whereas before on the 295, it would kind of break the wheels loose a little bit. So you definitely have more grip, especially with the wider tire. I think the the fitment is much better. I did add a set of 20 millimeter wheel spacers all the way around, and it does give it a pretty aggressive fitment, but I do like that. It doesn't rub, and you know, I'm definitely a huge fan of that. So another one of the changes that I made are these scoops. So these scoops are by JTC or Joe Toth Composites. They are made to order, and it's a very high quality fiberglass. Now, for those who aren't familiar with turbos, you know, there is a factory scoop here, but it doesn't really stick out. It kind of sits flush with the quarter panel, and it is functional. So the air that goes into here goes straight to the intercoolers. And I wanted something just a little bit more aggressive, and I actually saw it on a friend's car. So I went with these, and I'm pretty happy with them. The way that they attach is just by 3M adhesive. If you wanted a more permanent look, you could remove, you know, the factory scoop and this and have a professional body shop mold them together. I like it a lot, and not sure if I'm ready for that type of commitment to it. So I'm super happy with the way that it attaches now, and I think it gives it a pretty aggressive look. So moving on to the back, there's the Strosek wing that I installed in the last video. Another one of the things that I changed are the exhaust tips. So the factory exhaust tips are pretty much flat on the bottom and have what almost looks like maybe a half teardrop or something towards the top, and it pretty much flows with the factory bumper cutout. But I wanted something a little bit different, so I went with the X54 exhaust tips. I believe this may have been an option from Porsche. And I just love the design, how it kind of like interlocks into each other. It's like a quad exhaust tip, but they, you know, they're together as opposed to being separate. And they are from the factory, made from Eisenman, which is pretty cool. So I think that kind of gave the rear, you know, a much kind of cleaner, different look. While we're back here, I did have the rear bumperettes color matched to the car. So a lot of 911s, when you buy them, they have this hard rubber material, and it's black normally. And though it does give the car a little bit of contrast, it's kind of an eyesore in my opinion. So to clean it up, what I did was I went ahead and had it taken to my local body shop and had them color match them actually while the scoops were being done as well. So super happy with those. Eventually I am gonna do the rear bumperette delete. So the only way that you can really kind of get rid of them and have them look nice and clean is you can go with the Euro bumper. However, that is a little more pricey. Basically, once you remove the bumperette, there is a metal bracket, and if you were to remove that, there would be a hole. And the rear bumper delete, basically, you would remove the bumperette, you remove the metal bracket, you remove the license plate, and basically it'll be a plate that would be color matched to the car, and it would basically just bolt on, and then it would just leave it nice and clean, no exposed holes. And that's probably one of the last things that I'm gonna do, because otherwise that's pretty much it as far as the cosmetic changes that I've made to the car. Honestly, I am pretty happy with it, and I really don't want to overdo the car. I mean, the 911 is kind of one of those platforms where, you know, from the factory, you know, it's a pretty good looking car. The performance is there, but, you know, for me, I just like to kind of modify things and kind of make it my own. There are a couple modifications that I did do on the inside that I'll go over. So one of the first ones is this guy here. So not sure if you can see it, but it's a Valentine 1 radar detector. Now, I wasn't planning to get a radar detector for the most part. I just like to cruise. But when I was driving one day, I did notice that there was like a black wire that was hanging kind of right here in the headliner. And when I found the end of it, it was a power cord to a Valentine 1. So it looked like the previous owner had previously had it hardwired to the ignition. So I've had Valentine 1s before. That's the only reason I was familiar with, you know, the plug. And then I had actually looked over here on the passenger side visor, and there was actually a bracket for a Valentine 1. So I went ahead and got one, and just went ahead and plugged it in, and it starts up pretty much whenever you put the key in the car and turn that on. I'll show you. It comes on with it, which is great. For those who aren't familiar with the Valentine 1, the reason why I really like it is it actually has directional arrows. It has like a front, a rear, and then side to side. So essentially, if you are getting hit with radar, it'll let you know, if, hey, it's coming from the front, it's coming from the rear, or it's coming from one of the sides. So just something to make you, mindful of it, bring your attention to it. And, it works pretty well. So one of the last things that I've done that I guess I can go over is the radio. So the setup that I had in here before was the AC controls were pretty much in this area. Then there was a singled-in radio. Underneath that, there was like CD storage, like a 5-disc, 6-disc CD storage. And then the previous owner had installed a standalone XM radio unit. So the last two items that were down here, the CD holder and then the XM radio unit, I was not using. And my radio actually went out on me. And basically what it was doing is you would start up the car and, you would see it light up, but there would be no sound. And basically, if you turned it off, turned it back on, it would say Porsche, and no sound would ever come on. So, talked to the wife, and she gave me her blessings to go ahead and replace the radio. So I went with a Sony, I believe it's the AX 5500, I believe. And it's a doubled-in radio, all touchscreen. It's got Apple CarPlay. It's compatible with Android, whatever their system is called. But I'm super happy with kind of the layout of it now. It's a lot more functional than it was before. So Metra is the company, I believe, who makes the dash kit. So now we have the clean doubled in up here on the upper half. And instead of the CD changer the CD holder and the XM radio unit, we have a little cubby hole, and the AC controls were essentially rerouted down here, or relocated, I guess you could say. And I think it's a lot more useful, and you can put your wallet in there, your phone, whatever, and it's a lot more functional. Another thing that I wanted to do is I did want to retain the factory Bose system, because I think it does sound pretty good. But the shop, or the cardio shop that I took it to, said that I guess there wasn't really a way to retain the factory Bose radio and the factory amp. So what he did was he was able to put in a 500 watt Kenwood amplifier, and it's small and compact, and pretty much mounted it on the OEM brackets in the factory location. So realistically, if you were to, look in the front trunk area, you couldn't even really tell that it was an aftermarket amplifier. And the aftermarket amplifier that he installed powers the factory subs, which is pretty cool. This is normally just like a blank button. He went ahead and added a bass knob here so I could easily adjust it. I can actually cut it on for you guys just so you can kind of see what it looks like. I can't really show you the Apple Play just because I'm filming right now on my phone, and obviously it's plugged into the gimbal. But let's see, close. Yeah, so you got your radio, think these are like kind of just default stations, but you have XM radio, you know, you got Bluetooth audio, phone, USB. It looks like you can add a rear camera. I did not opt for that. I just really don't like the look of aftermarket cameras, and I honestly just don't really trust them. I'd just rather, you know, look out the back window. So that is pretty much it. As far as the, you know, the changes that I've made since the last video, I kind of wanted to just share that with you guys, and this way you could kind of see what I've been up to and kind of what the car is at now, what the garage is looking like, and yeah, that is pretty much her. As you can tell, the paint looks super good. I did obviously correct it as soon as I got it, and I'm usually very meticulous with how often I clean it and keep it. Basically, if it's anything more than a 15 to 30 minute drive locally, just to drive it and keep everything going, especially if I haven't driven it in a week or so, normally I'll just park it back in the garage. But if I go out to Cars and Coffee that's far away and drive it for a long period of time, I will give it a hand wash. And I must say, having the ceramic coating on there definitely makes such a substantial difference. I mean, not only cosmetically does it give it a very deep, glossy finish, but cleaning it is pretty effortless. It literally takes me about 15 minutes to, wash the car and the wheels. And then the other 15 minutes is pretty much drying it to the touch with a leaf blower. So pretty happy with that. I mean, that's, the paint looks extremely good for being an 03 car. And, I'm super, super happy with it. So as far as the future of this car and kind of what my plans are for it, moving forward, honestly, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with the way that it sits now. So, realistically, I don't have a ton of plans for it. I think I may do the rear bumper or rear bumperette delete whenever my friend is done creating it. I haven't been able to find one on the market, but I have a friend that makes them for the 997 currently, and he is currently working on the template for the 996. So I think that that's going to look really nice and clean, and just kind of clean it up a little more in the rear. Also, one of the things that I'll eventually do is get this seat fixed. So for those who aren't familiar with these seats, these are OEM GT3 seats in cloth. So they're actually pretty common in leather, and they're uncommon in cloth. But as you can tell, there's obviously wear here, and then also in that spot right there. So there is a local upholstery guy that I've used before that does great work. He just asked me to bring it by so he can ensure that he can match it up. Just because if I do replace it, I will want it back to factory spec regarding the material and everything. I just like to keep it all original since, it is an OEM seat. So other than those things, I really don't intend to make any other changes. It's just going to be, stay on top of the maintenance of the car, which is pretty basic, just change the oil. And other than that, I just intend to enjoy it. I did put it out on a couple social media forums, just to kind of put it out there. I did put a number on it, but more importantly, I'm open to trades. That's why I started this channel, is because I kind of want to experience, as many unique cars as possible. Because, with each car, you learn about common issues, you learn about the cost of ownership, you learn about the community. All of that comes with each car. And it's just super cool. I think there's a lot of cool cars out there. And the best way to find out what you really like for sure is by owning it, whether it's for a week, whether it's for 2 weeks, or, you know, 5-6 months, however long it is that you own it, you know, you're going to learn about it. So, the car is out there. The only thing that I'm struggling with is the price point. So, or basically a car that offers everything that this car does for the price point of it. And, you know, I'm just kind of trying to find something that, you know, will do everything this car can do. And I'm just really struggling with it. So, you know, if you guys have any opinions maybe on what the next one should be, let me know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, guys, well, that is pretty much it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. Hopefully you like where the car is at in its current state. You know, anytime you're working on a car, anytime you're making changes to it, I try to be very mindful kind of the application. And the 911 is one of those cars where a lot of R&D has gone into it, and they are beautiful cars from the factory that perform very well from the factory. So that's why I can understand that there are purists out there, people that believe in just leaving it all original, because realistically nothing needs to be changed with the car. I personally just like to change things up, make it my own, and hopefully complement the car as opposed to kind of taking away from it. So if there are any other aesthetic mods that you think could potentially enhance the look of the car, you know, I'll take a look at that. Just leave them in the comments. And also let me know what you think about the floors. Let me know what you think about the color combination with the design and how all of that ties into the rest of the garage. You know, I'm always open to feedback, and you know, I hope that you guys kind of like the new setup. I'm hoping to have more content for you, so until the next modification or the next experience, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.